Okay. All right. Hey guys, I'm Al Washington, and welcome to my Mystical Loves podcast. I am here with author R.J. Clark. We're going to be talking about actually, two of his books from the series Twisted Tales of Familiar Faces. The first one we're going to be reviewing is with the birth of Sweethaven. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to R.J. R.J., if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Hey, everybody. I am RJ. I am right now primarily a horror author. I have two entries in the Twisted Tales series. There's a lot of great books in the Twisted Tales series. Definitely check them out. Start with mine, but then check out all the others as well. I also created the Staycation series. There's three books in the series so far. Wink, wink. And definitely check those out too. Each book is a little bit different in tone, but if you kind of like extreme horror, mystery, thriller, definitely right up your alley. So check them out.
Absolutely. And thank you, RJ. We'll go ahead and get right into it. So first off, I'm reading the Sweet Haven Twisted Tales of Familiar Faces. I do love the beginning. You automatically draw the readers in. You're giving like a shadow of the villain per se. So I definitely love the tone for it. And I you just started with the action, which I love. Not giving too much away. So what made you do your own twisted version of Popeye?
So a few years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, a very low budget horror movie came out called Steamboat Mickey. So Mickey Mouse, the steamboat version of Mickey Mouse, went into public domain, and a couple of guys, very smart guys, jumped on that and made this low budget horror movie using that image of Mickey Mouse as the killer. A lot of people then jumped on the bandwagon and said, wait a minute, that's a great idea. I think
Yeah.
there's two other versions of the Steamboat Mickey horror movies. The publisher that I worked with, M for L Publishing, on the
Uh-huh.
Staycation series, they had approached me and said, this is a great idea. We want to jump on this. And these are the characters that are going into public domain next year. And do you want to pick one of them and write a horror version of these characters? So I immediately went to Popeye. I immediately saw the possibilities to do something Lovecraftian because Popeye's set in a seaside town. Sweethaven is Popeye's hometown.
Right.
So I immediately felt drawn to that and I felt the story, and it was an easy pick for me. It wrote itself very quickly. So my publisher really had some good foresight to develop this series, and now we're in our volume two of the series. My Dracula version just came out, as you know.
Right.
So all of us have picked different characters and have put our own unique spins on them. Some more thrillery, some outright horror, some ghosty, some really good stuff. All of them are very different. Some really great spins. There's Don Quixote, Rapunzel, Scrooge. There's one for Scrooge as well. Some great stuff. But Popeye was a no brainer for me. I
Yeah.
saw the story before I even wrote the first word of it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, definitely. But you definitely set it up definitely as a darker tone, like I said, within the book. It's like because, back then I gave it was like early 70s or 80s, Popeye was kind of like a cartoon, bright, cartoon show. And then doing it as a dark twisted tale to me definitely catches my attention and making it your own voice. So, but speaking of which, RJ, because you mentioned the Steamboat, also I think it's on Amazon Prime, they had a couple of slasher horror movies, Popeye's Revenge and Popeye the Slayer Man. I wanted to get your thoughts on that and see, have you seen any of them yet? Did you like them? Hell yes or hell no? Me, I saw the trailers. But I shouldn't be talking though, because my first supernatural horror novella is going to be based on a dark twisted version of the Three Little Pigs, and I know that.
Nice.
Oh, thank. All right, Jay. I know it's coming, RJ.
I
I know.
love that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm good. I'll keep you in the loop. Yes, it's
Definitely.
coming. Yes, everybody, it's coming. Yes. So I'm scared as hell, but I definitely trying to flesh it out to write it. But I'm getting to where with the Popeyes is that I saw the trailers for the movies yet, and I'm not trying to bash anybody's, like I said, vision or anything. It's just that it's not catching my attention yet. Because to me, the story concept has to be there. Just like when I'm reading your book, that your concept grabbed me. How you did your version, I think, was great. So I wanted to get your intake. What do you think of the? Did you see any of those two movies yet?
I did actually, yeah. I saw the trailers when the trailers dropped, and
Okay.
final draft of Sweethaven was already into the publisher. So my story was locked. It was done. I could make no changes to it. And I saw the trailers and for both of them. And my immediate reaction was, I have nothing to worry about.
You're so funny.
My story is so different from what they're doing.
Right,
Number one, and just number two, story wasn't really first and foremost on their minds. Clearly,
right,
the stories were very Steamboat Mickey. They were very basic. You know, Popeye's a killer. It's exactly what you would expect.
right,
For lack of a better way to say it. There were no surprises in the
right,
trailer. You say horror version Popeye, watch the trailer. That's exactly what you get.
right,
Not to kind of pat myself on the back, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. He's horrific in my story, but
right.
he's not necessarily the outright killer that Steamboat Mickey was, or that the Popeye
Yeah.
Slayer was in those movies. I kind of played with that a little bit more, and I think it makes it a little more interesting.
Absolutely, and I agree too. It's just that again, I'm not like I said here to bash anybody. Like I said, because I'm again doing a remake, and you also did a remake of a popular, like I said, story. But to me, story is very important. Like you said, anybody can take an idea and just, I mean, I can do a Popeye, but again, the story needs to come out. If I don't like the story, it's just I'm simply not going to be working on it, or I'll put it to the side. So it's kind of like, do you remember, for instance, when I was younger, like the Jason movies? Okay, the first one was good with the mom being the killer. But after a while, no offense, they were getting repetitive. It was getting boring as hell, especially no offense, Halloween. It's the same, excuse my language, it's the same shit. He
Yeah.
killed random people to get to his sister. To me, that's boring as hell. When I was younger, it was, oh yeah, I love horror movies, which I still do. But maybe because I'm a writer, the story has to be there. I mean, anybody can sleepaway, not sleepaway camp, bloody massacre camp, part 7, or Jason goes to space. I don't. That's what I mean. It's just to me,
Yeah.
the story has to be there, and I don't want to just make it cheap. Because, like I said, with the piggy I'm working on, I can easily turn it into a 10-minute piece of just the killings and stuff. But I really want to take the time to flesh out the characters. And
You have to.
yeah,
Anybody can write, a movie where a slasher just goes around killing people.
yeah,
It's not difficult. The audience is generally going to root for the killer. You make the killer somewhat interesting. You just have them go around killing nameless, faceless people, and a good portion of your audience is going to be happy. But what made Friday the 13th, the first one, and the second one to a large extent, and
right,
Halloween, interesting was there was a story, there was
right,
a character. The characters were, by and large, interesting for the most part. But, things get watered down, things get changed, and story
yeah,
becomes, less and less important. But story is everything. If you don't
it
have a
is.
story, you've got nothing. You don't have anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Anybody could. That's well said, well been put. And with that, with my next question, I think you just answered it. What do you think the main ingredient is when it comes to doing a horror movie of a book, like a remake that you want to do? Like, what do you think the main ingredient people need if they're doing a remake of a horror
If you're
movie?
doing a remake, I think there's a couple things that you have to do. You have to have a good story. You
Yeah.
also, if you're doing a remake or you're doing something like we'll talk about, I'll use Sweet Haven obviously as the example.
Right.
You have to stay true to the source material. There are things that an audience is going to expect.
Yeah.
You have to deliver on those things in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's a wink and a nod here, or a Easter egg somewhere else. But there are things that an audience expects in a remake. Now you can also subvert their expectations and go off a little bit differently and give them something new. But you have to give them, it's kind of like getting married. You have to give them something old and something new. It's the only way to appease everybody, because a remake in particular isn't for the original audience. A remake is for a whole new audience who would never watch or read the original material because it's old.
Yeah.
But a remake is going to be for a new audience who doesn't know the lore, who doesn't know that there's 12 other movies in the series or would never watch them. So really, you have to have some kind of unique spin to it that still stays, by and large, faithful to the source material. That gives you so many so many possibilities. You
Oh yeah.
don't have to just do what was done before.
Right.
You have to stick within certain parameters, which it makes it more fun.
I agree. And also on a side note, I was gonna say as writers, but speaking of which, when you said that you want to try something unique and not using the same watered down shit, just like for instance, congratulations to Sinners, who they got the highest nomination.
Oh,
Yeah,
totally,
exactly.
totally.
On a side note, because not because of that, it's to me it was a natural, raw, different type of horror film, especially dealing with racism, etc. But it was different, is unique versus as just doing another franchise of like, you know, Jason or Freddy. So that's yeah, exactly what we're talking about. It also goes with movies as well as books. So I agree. I mean,
100%.
yeah,
And Sinners knocked it out of the park. It
yes, they
took
did.
a vampire story, it took it, subverted it, defied expectations, and did something new with something that could have been very formulaic. So
Absolutely.
kudos to them. They deserve every nomination.
Right.
I was surprised by the film, frankly, and I was blown away. And still,
Yeah.
it earned every single nomination. Like it's fantastic, and I'm glad a horror film got that much recognition.
Ab
Frankly.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So win or lose, when Oscar night comes, you guys already won. It was fantastic. Soundtrack, diversity, like I said in the movie, I thought it was just fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
Agreed.
yeah, absolutely. How was it creating your main character, Chase, the detective in Sweet Haven? Was it a challenge and also for your villain? How was that?
So I'll start with Chase M Down. If you get what I'm doing there, he was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Essentially, I watched a lot of old detective movies, and I read a couple of Dashiell Hammett novels, the Thin Man novels, Maltese Falcon, because those stories are mostly narrated in the first person, like Sweet Haven is. So you get
Right.
your hard boiled detective, and I wanted the rhythm of those stories. I wanted the language of those stories. Once you've seen a couple of those films or read a couple of those books, it's just right there. They're all the same.
Absolutely.
You kind of I wanted to take the mold of a detective and put a Lovecraft spin on it. You know, the whole town has a Lovecraft spin on it.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't hard to kind of do that, but it was a lot of fun to kind of create a character that was in the mold of Humphrey Bogart and all those classic detectives from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, all those old black and white films, which
Yeah,
I loved as a kid. I still do.
absolutely.
Um, so I had a lot of fun molding him after like childhood inspirations. The villain question is a little tricky to answer,
Of
but I will do my best.
course.
It was a lot of fun to envision nightmarish versions of the world of Popeye. So it was really fun to take this really nice, beautiful, sunny seaside resort town that is Sweet Haven and make it a dark, moody, noirish place that then
That's
gets
right.
infected and turns into a Lovecraftian nightmare of a village. So it was great, and my creativity just flew all into the pages because I had no limits on what I could do once you introduce Lovecraft.
That's right.
So with with the villain, um, talk about subverting expectations. I feel I did that. I
Yes,
feel I was true to the lore of Popeye, true to Popeye's villains, Popeye's nemesises throughout the series, throughout the comics. And I feel I delivered something that was very faithful and yet very unique in its spin on those characters.
absolutely. You did it vividly, especially like I keep saying in the beginning. Can't stress that enough. Literally grabbing the reader's attention, and you definitely well deserved. Definitely did that because it definitely caught my attention. Because I was like I said, looking on Amazon. Um, because I think the not I think the Twisted Tales of Familiar Faces came on my Kindle when I was charging it, and they put advertisings on it like for certain books or whatever, perfume, jewelry, whatever. But then the series came up. It's like, okay, wow, this seems okay. Let me check it out and started reading them, the synopsis, and yeah, that's how it came. I was like, this is love it. And that's why I reached out to RJ. I was like, okay,
Awesome,
had to
awesome.
say it.
Glad you found me. Glad you found me.
Absolutely, yes, you're very welcome. Thank you. So not going too much into detail, was there a scene or difficult chapter that was hard to flesh out? You don't, like I said, without going too much into detail.
Yeah, without giving too many spoilers, I mean, I've already alluded to the fact the story is really this horror mystery.
Hmm.
So crafting a mystery was new to me, even though I love detective stories.
Right.
I've never written one before. So it was hard for me to keep track of the clues and knowing myself where everything was leading, what was a red herring, what wasn't a red herring, keeping all of that straight until the actual unmasking of the villain.
That's
So
right.
that entire sequence where you get the villain doing the summation and the detective unmasking the villain, that was challenging because I really had to keep the evidence straight. It had to make sense. It
Yeah.
had to be something that the reader could follow along with and play detective. Like I didn't want a detective story that you get to the reveal and the reader had no chance of figuring out who the villain was. I wanted the reader to then go, "Oh my god, duh! Of course that's who the villain is." It all makes sense now, and that took a lot of tweaking. I wanted to make sure there were enough clues that everybody could play along and that the unmasking was both a surprise and if you had been paying attention
Right.
it was rewarding, so it
Absolutely.
had to pay off on two levels and hopefully it did for people.
Good. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. Definitely hear that. Get that. So the new year starting, well, we're going into February, might as well. Anyway, but the new year started. Your Twisted Tales of Familiar Faces, your newest book in the series, Dracula. So definitely congratulations for that.
Awesome, thanks.
You're very welcome. I know it a lot, like I said, going on. We all got, like I said, a lot of stuff going on, balancing with our personal lives as well as work or whatever, etc. How did you feel about like doing it? How do you feel on Dracula? How do you feel? I know you said you're ready to reset as well as I and others as well. How do you feel? So,
Dracula was an interesting thing because I knew we were doing a second series of Twisted Tales.
right.
I knew that months before any characters were even presented to us writers from the first go round. Um, I saw the list and I had a really hard time picking a character. Like with Popeye, it was so easy. I saw Popeye, I saw Lovecraft, I saw this
Right.
horrific version of his town, and then
Right.
it all fell into place. It was like murder mystery, noir, detective. It all just was like lightning in a bottle for me. This list was a lot harder. There were characters that I liked, and there were
Hmm.
characters I thought could make a really interesting horror spin,
Uh-huh.
but nothing called out to me. There was nothing that I was like, bam, got it, boom. This is what I want to do. The only one on the list I kept going back to was Dracula, and Dracula was my first introduction to horror as a kid. Bela Lugosi, my Dracula growing up. So I really had to think about could I do something with Dracula that hasn't been done before,
Right.
and I had to walk away for a couple days and say, what can I do with this? My favorite character from literature, the character that got me into horror in the first place. What could I possibly bring to the Dracula table?
Right.
It took a couple days, a couple of really bad ideas, and then lightning in a bottle struck again, and I think I came up with something. Definitely, I came up with something that's never been done before. It's a version of Dracula nobody's ever done before.
Well, all right.
Um,
Okay.
so I think it's unique in taking a character everybody knows that's no pun intended. It's been done to death,
Right.
literally been done to death. Every version of Dracula you can think of has been done, except for what I did with the character, which I
Right.
think it's unique. I think it's fun. It's very timely. For lack of a, I hate saying that, but it is very timely. And that's what attracted me to the idea. I was like, I can do this, and I can make a lot of statements about all of this that we're experiencing, that we're living in this whole tech driven society.
That's right.
And it just was really easy. Once that clicked, it was really easy.
Well, RJ, I'm glad that you said that because I mean, I'm glad you still got the book out because I know what you mean. Like Dracula has been done, like a lot of adaptions and retellings, audio, movies, theater, books, whatever. But I'm glad you still got it done because you could have been like, well, everybody else is doing it, or this has been done before. I'm not even going to try. I mean, that's how I felt too, again, when I'm writing my first book off, based off, Piggy Piggy, Three Little Pigs. But it's like, this is your version, Miss Washington. So this is your version, your voice. You're still going to do it. Because there's another version, uh, Piggy's coming out, I think, next month for somebody, another author. I'm like, now I'm getting discouraged. I was like, no, no, you are going to write it. This is your version. So, like I said, just like when,
Be true to your vision. Yeah,
yeah,
even if there's two versions of that Popeye horror movie. There's
right.
at least two, I think it's three versions of Steamboat Mickey as horror films.
Okay.
You can do the same thing. You can do the same character, but it's your version of the character. It's not going to be what anybody else is doing. So
Right.
definitely go ahead, do it. It's your voice, it's your imagination, it's your story. Nobody else has what you have to
That's
do
right.
it. And that's what makes them all unique. Some are, just intrinsically, some are better than others. Some hit the
Right.
marks of being a good story more than some others do. But, by all means, everybody get your stuff out there. You got a vision, do it. You'll find an audience. It may not be me. I may not be the person that says, oh, I love this, this is fantastic, I need to sit down and watch this movie, but somebody
Right.
else will.
Right.
Not every piece is for every reader or every moviegoer, but
Right.
I'm all for people getting their visions out there, whether they're for me or not. There's definitely things that are not for me. Sinners was for me. So,
Absolutely. Same here.
you know, there's definitely other things that I would clearly say I'm not the target audience for this product.
Right. I agree. Just like if somebody want to open their own pizza joint, same thing, different flavors, unique taste on it. So absolutely, I agree. So that's all I
Totally.
just, yeah, exactly. So I'm proud of you. Like I said, happy for you. Use your own version of Popeye as well as Dracula. So absolutely, kudos and congratulations again.
Awesome.
What
Thanks.
You're very welcome. What inspired you ultimately to become a writer? Did something or someone lit a fire under your ass that lets you bring out your passion?
um it's a weird thing. I feel like if you talk to enough horror writers, there's certain things that we all have in common. And I don't just write horror, but horror is my first love.
Right.
I'll do the short version of the story, but I feel it's in your DNA. I feel horror is something that you're wired for, kind of like science fiction. Like
Hmm.
you're just born with this innate thing to seek it out. Like I said, I was really young when I discovered the Universal monsters, and Dracula was my guy. My
Right.
mother bought me, I still have the Dracula one. Unfortunately, I don't have the Frankenstein one. But she bought me these children's versions of the novels. So they were these illustrated, abridged versions written for kids of Dracula and of Frankenstein. My copy of that book is so worn from reading it
Oh,
so many times. The illustrations scared me to death as a kid, but yet I loved looking at them.
right.
Um, Totally just really got me into horror. As far as taking that next step to thinking I could write horror, there's a guy out there you may have heard of. His name is Stephen King.
Oh, who is that? Who the hell is
Who
that?
is that guy? I know, right? Look
Right.
him up. Take a look. He's written a few books. You might have read a couple of them. My grandparents on their bookshelf, and it was a small bookshelf. They had a copy of the unabridged version of The Stand,
Right.
and it was a wild cover that had the two penguin-looking guys, kind of with swords, and on the back, the author photo for King, he just looked like a wild man. Like he had the full beard, he had the
Yeah.
crazy eyes in the photo. This was like his 1970s author photo, and I hadn't. The book was beyond me. I was a kid. There was no way I was going to read The Stand, but the book, just the physical book, the
Yeah.
size of the book, the cover, the title, the crazy author photo. I just looked at the book and said, "That's what I want to do. That's
Well, all right.
exactly what I want to do."
Well, all
I
right.
started writing terrible stories, sequels to everything that I love. Dracula Part Two, The Wolfman Part Two, Friday the 13th Part Three. I actually, as a kid, made a Super 8 film of. I called it the first Friday the 13th on Halloween, where Jason and Michael Myers meet.
Oh,
years before they did Freddy versus Jason. We're talking 20 years at least before they did that. So I was ahead of my time at least. But um, for a long time, as I got older, I didn't feel I could offer anything to horror that hadn't already been done.
okay.
So I didn't think of horror as something I really wanted to do. I loved it, but I didn't want to do it.
Right.
I wrote I think two other general fiction novels before I sat down and wrote a horror novel. Um, I had a literary agent at the time, and they were shopping around my debut novel. And I asked, "What do you want me to do next?" And his response was basically, forgive my French, write the most fucked up horror novel you could write, and that was Staycation. That was the first horror book I had published by M4L, and after that, it just kind of clicked. I finished out
Right.
the trilogy. I did Sweethaven. I did Dracula. So now I've kind of got this horror brand that I never expected, and I love it. I still have my love of horror, but for
Absolutely.
me, I have to have a story. I have to have a unique story. I have to have something to say that hasn't been said before.
Absolutely, RJ. Yeah, well put. Definitely well said. Absolutely. Yeah. So on a real quick with Frankenstein, I wasn't a big fan of it because to me it was like, okay, somebody's just walking slowly with a slow ass walk, just walking, put his hands up in the air, whoop de damn do. But as I looked at some of the older movies in the 30s and looked at one of the books, it really kept my interest. It's like, oh, this man is 7 or 8 foot tall man. So it definitely the way she wrote the story definitely caught my interest. So like I said, just how I portrayed it. But first I was like, no, hell no, it looked boring, blah, blah, blah. But I took the time to say, you know what, let me rehash it again. So, but it caught my attention, especially with the elements and everything for it. But, well said. Well, RJ, I do definitely want to thank you for taking the time to come on with me in my loft to talk about your latest books. Do you
Awesome.
want to let everybody know where they can find you and everything?
So essentially, my website is rjclarkwriter.com. Pretty much, I update it regularly. There's a blog and there's a newsletter. So subscribe. You get some really cool members only stuff if you subscribe. And pretty much, TikTok is my main social, and it's RJ Clark Writer on there too. If you search that in, I will definitely come up. I am on Instagram, but I've kind of abandoned posting on there. RJ Clark Writer on there as well. I'm trying to get back into the flow of social media again. It's hard when you're writing to go
Yes.
out and make content when you're making content for hours at the computer. So now that I've kind of taken a step back and I'm taking a breath after Dracula, I'm going to be more active on social and my website again. But pretty much anywhere you search RJ Clark Writer, if I'm on the platform, it'll come up.
Okay, definitely. We definitely do appreciate it, guys. Definitely please check out his latest books, The Twisted Tales of Familiar Faces, The Sweet Haven, the Popeye, his own version, as well as his new book, Dracula with the series. So definitely thank you again. And thank you guys for joining in, and I will see you guys next time.